So just last Wednesday, Google finally released Google Stadia to the public. So anyone in the 14 supported countries can go ahead and click join now, and they can get 2 free months of Stadia service for free. But however, since the release of said service, there's been a lot of rumors, a lot of myths out there, because you got the internal gamings and the yeahs of the world that are just putting out the wrong information to you. Okay, so I am here to dispel all those myths. All right, so sit back and relax, and let's myth bust Stadia. If you're interested in the latest news, analysis, and reviews on the world of Google Stadia, don't forget to click subscribe. Click that bell notification so you get up-to-date notifications when I go live with new content, new live streams, or whatever the case may be. And speaking of new content, I started a professional wrestling channel, and it also deals with combat sports. So if that's something you're interested in, click the link in the top right to get sent over to that channel so you can subscribe to that for more content over there. Now, we're here to bust some myths about Google Stadia, because ever since Stadia became a thing, you got your big content creators, you got your big journalistic websites that are kind of putting the wrong information out there. So this is for, as my friend MM2K would say, the unsuspecting gamer, because you are here because, well, you might be new to the platform and you're like, well, I heard this from this person, I heard this from this article, I heard this from blah, blah, blah. Some of it may be kind of laden into some part of the truth, but a lot of it is just either misleading or just completely false. So here we are, we're going to go through about, 7 or 8 of these myths that I would call them about Google Stadia, and kind of tell you the truth about Stadia. So one of the very first things you'll hear about Google Stadia and the platform itself is that you need a subscription to play the games. Not true at all. What you need is the ability to play the game. So whether it's a Chromecast Ultra and the Stadia controller, a computer, your phone, a tablet, a laptop, that's all you need. That's all you need to play these games. So think of it as having like Microsoft give you an Xbox free and all you have to do is just buy the games. That is what Google is doing. Now what they're doing specifically right now, and what I think they're going to be doing in the future, is they're giving you 2 free months of Stadia Pro for free, which if you are aware of any kind of online service subscription service, yeah, that was backwards. If you're aware of any online service, you always get a free pro trial to start. Not free pro, but you get a free trial to start. So Netflix, for instance, if you're a new Netflix user, you get a free month trial to start the service. And the whole reason behind this is so you can kind of get your feet wet and understand if this service is for you. Because companies like Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Google, they make money on people recurring that subscription cost for them. That is a big deal for Google, and they want to be able to do the same thing for Stadia, because it is it requires a certain set of circumstances for you to play it properly. And they want to make sure that you have the time to do that, and they're giving you an extra month on top of what would typically more than likely be 1 month of service because of what's going on in the world. So it's kind of Google trying to earn some goodwill by giving you an extra month of Stadia Pro for free. Now, when you have Stadia, you buy games, you'll always have access to them. So if you're a pro member or you're a base member, which is what people call it, you will always have access to games you actually purchase. So any money that you throw towards a game, so NBA 2K20 happens to be on sale, or just has to be a game you buy, if you have a pro subscription or not, you'll always be able to play it. Now, say NBA 2K20 became a pro game in the future, and it's a game you can claim, you'll only have access to that game when you are a pro member concurrently. Now, if 2K20 became free for pro members tomorrow and you're a pro member now, but you let the service lapse next month, and then after that month, you're like, you know what, I want to resubscribe, you will have access to 2K20 again, but you only have access to pro games that you claim as long as you are a pro member. So any time in between that maybe a new pro game came out and the ability to claim it has been gone since you re-signed up, you won't have access to that. But anything you've ever claimed in the past will always be to your disposal. Now, this next one came from a buddy of mine because I told him, hey, the service is out, you should definitely try it now. And he's like, well, I don't have the peripherals to use it. And the idea is that for Stadia to work, you need a Chromecast Ultra and the Stadia controller, which is not true. Is it the best experience in my opinion? Yes, but it is just one of the many ways you can use Google Stadia. Now, right now, Google has something called as the Premier Edition on their website that you can buy for about $129. And this comes with the Chromecast Ultra and the controller, which is the retail price for both of them separated individually, but the benefit of getting that over just them individually was been the 3-month pro trial that Google is giving you, but now that might be a little redundant considering that everyone gets 2 months for free anyway. but that's just one of the only ways you can play it. You can play it with your phone, you can play it with your tablet, you can play it with your laptop, you can play it on your computer, and of course the Chromecast Ultra and the Stadia controller. Now, when it comes to the Chromecast Ultra, it's very important to note, you cannot use any other controller as of this moment with the Chromecast Ultra. It has to be the Stadia controller. And this is kind of a way for Google to make some sales on the hardware side, and it's just the way the Stadia controller works, which is beamed through Wi-Fi. That is how the system works with the Chromecast Ultra. So as of this moment, the only way to play on your TV straight through the Chromecast Ultra is the Stadia controller. Now this one's technically true if you want to consider it. Having to rebuy games on Stadia, that's if, well, for one, you want to double dip. I mean, Google's not telling you, hey, go buy Red Dead Redemption for the second time because just do it. No, this is a new console. This is a new platform. So of course you're gonna have to rebuy games on Stadia. It's just like if you're an Xbox user and you bought a PlayStation, you're not expecting all your Xbox games to carry over because that's just not how it works. Now, I don't know why this is always being brought up. And the reason it might be brought up is because it's a cloud gaming platform that you can play on your PC, and things like GFN exist out there. So people are like, well, why can't I play my Steam games? I can do it with GeForce Now. I can't do it with Stadia. No, you can't, because Stadia is its own console platform. Now, when I did a wish list of games I wanted to see on Stadia, my number one wish was for my Steam library to carry over. But at the time then, and this was like November, December, I even knew then that that was not going to happen, just because, well, a lot of things would need to happen for it to work, and it just won't. It is an unfortunate truth, but it's only a truth if you want to double dip. I mean, I've unfortunately double dipped with some games on Stadia for the convenience factor of it, and some sales just been way too good to pass up. Looking at you, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I've been playing a lot of lately. But you don't have to rebuy games. That's a myth, all right? Okay, admittedly, this next one might be a your mileage may vary kind of situation in terms of, can Stadia actually work for you? Now, across the world, and one of my biggest worries about Stadia when the launch was about to happen was, is our internet infrastructure ready for Google Stadia? And in some places, it just really isn't, because you don't have the high-speed connections that are required, or the stable high-speed connections, rather, that you need to absolutely have to play something like Stadia. Now, people may say that, oh, I have X amount of down speed and X amount of upload speed. And yeah, that may be the truth for you, but some things you may need to consider when you get into Google Stadia. And this is a big reason why the Pro trial exists, so you can see if it works on your setup. Now, one thing you need to know if you're going on a Wi-Fi setup, which, by the way, the best way, as always, is to hardwire your connection. Now, if this is not possible for you, because me personally, I play mostly in my living room, which is about 50 feet away from my router, always have the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi band on. Make sure you turn off the dual band aspect of your router if it has it, and make sure 2.4 is nowhere near your system at all. Another thing to note is in the Google Home settings, there's a setting that can be turned on every now and then, which for me it ended up being on for some reason. The 50 hertz connection was on by default for some reason. Now, this gave me a very unplayable experience when I first started off with Stadia, because 50 hertz and my 60 hertz TV don't mesh very well together. Back in the day, you would always have like on the Sega Genesis, for instance, or the Mega Drive across the seas, the way TVs were set up over there is they ran on a 50 hertz refresh rate, where here in the States, we always ran on a 60 hertz refresh rate. So if you tried playing a 50 hertz game on a 60 hertz television, it would not run well. And the PlayStation 1 Classic had that problem, for instance. So you need to make sure that your settings are set up to how you should have it as it pertains to your TV, your router. And another thing I want to suggest, because this was a big problem for me, is using the ISP router was an absolute abysmal experience. So when it came to the high traffic time, so like when people were getting off of work, or maybe when people were settling down during the weekend, you would always have some terrible experiences because, well, everyone was using the bandwidth. Now, for whatever reason, when it comes to the ISP routers, they're not really made for these kinds of environments. So when I picked up a Netgear router, it worked flawlessly since. So I've not had a problem when I've used my own third-party router. So that's something to consider as well. So as long as your setup is ready to go, it's not gonna be unplayable for you. Now, you might have the best conditions possible, good router, good speeds, and it just may not work for you. Then I implore you to check the official Stadia subreddit, ask people on Twitter, and there's also plenty of videos here on YouTube to kind of make the experience better for you. And again, this is a new service, so some of these things may require some tinkering on your end. And if you're having problems on the browser side, again, go to the subreddit, go on YouTube videos, Twitter. You'll find so many ways to figure out how to make the experience best for you. And you may say, well, I don't have problems with Netflix. Well, Netflix and Hulu and any kind of video services, they do have the benefit of buffering videos, where video games are more of an instantaneous reaction that require, well, the ability to always be instantaneous. Where Netflix, they can kind of load the video in the background as you go, and when maybe you have a disconnection from your internet, you still see the video still playing for a little bit, where you're playing something like Stadia, that's just going to be an instant drop for you. So keep everything in mind. Don't give up right away, because there may be some things you can turn on or fiddle with to make your experience a good one. Alright, so the idea that there are no games on Google Stadia or that they overcharge for older games, there's a lot of... This one's tough to talk about, because you gotta understand, no game console comes out with the latest and greatest games immediately and a crap load of them to boot. It just doesn't happen, because this is an unproven service. So that's something we always have to keep in mind, because cloud gaming is not going to be for everyone. And that's not just from, the consumer standpoint. Developers and publishers feel the same way, because, well, we've never done this before. We don't know if our money's gonna be worth the investment to port our game over, for instance. And, well, obviously that notion is starting to slowly be recognized as wrong, because you have all these new devs and all these new pubs come out saying, wow, the infrastructure of Stadia, the ability to jump in, playing these games pretty much the way we envision them, it's happening on Google Stadia. So the idea that there are no games on Stadia, maybe at the moment, but Google has announced that over 120 games are being tracked for launch this year. And as we slowly move towards those E3 times and the fall time, when you see a lot of these big titles come out, if we get to that point and you see no Madden, no FIFA, no Call of Duties, no Overwatch 2, then maybe it's time to start thinking, okay, maybe there's a little credence to that. But until then, we're kind of in that dead area where games just aren't really finding a way to find their way onto any platforms. Not to mention what's going on in the world is kind of pushing a lot of games out right now and pushing them a little further back. And that might have a lot to do with some of this notion. Now, the idea that Google overcharges for games, that's not on Google. Now pretend you're a dev or a publisher and you're trying to develop for a new system. So you have to put all this time, money, and resources towards developing for something like Google Stadia. And you're thinking, well, I don't know, should we release it at the $20 sale price we always have on Sony systems, or should we release it at a price that's going to help us recoup some of our losses of what we just made? Think about it from that perspective, think about it from a business side of things, and you can understand why maybe Assassin's Creed Odyssey is defaulted at $60. It takes time, money, and effort for a company to bring a new game over to a new system. And not only just a new system, but a new way of doing it, because it's based off of Linux and Vulkan, which a lot of these developers just have no experience with. So keep that in mind too. And not only that, look at something like the Switch. They do this all the time. The Witcher, Skyrim, both games. Now let's talk about Skyrim, because that's the more egregious example. Skyrim came out in, 2011? It is still $60 brand new on the Switch. Why? You have the special Ultimate Edition on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, which typically retails around the $20 mark. So why is this such a Stadia thing? Like, Nintendo does this thing all the time. And the thing is with Stadia, it's probably not going to be like this very permanently, because eventually you're going to have all these studios come out with games at the same time as the other companies. So it's not going to be that big of a deal going forward. So they're not really necessarily overcharging for games, at least Google isn't. It's the pubs and devs that you need to go complain to. Google is going to bury Stadia in the graveyard. Like, okay. Every big company has some projects that do happen to get put away because they just didn't work out, or maybe they just weren't worth the monetary investment that was being put into it. Google has been one of those companies that has done that, and of course they're really prevalent about it because they're such a huge company. They've gone through so many ideas. They've put an amalgamation of so many ideas together and recreated different ideas. Yes, this has happened in the past, but consider what Stadia is. Stadia is a game company now, right? And the amount of investment that Google is putting into Stadia, from the two first-party studios, from hiring big names in gaming like Phil Harrison, Jade Raymond, Jack Buser, and then of course Shannon Studstill, one of the most recent new hires over to Google to front one of the new studios. She was known for being a part of the God of War development team over at Santa Monica Studios. So the amount of investment that Google is putting behind Stadia needs you to think that, okay, maybe, just maybe, they're not going to bury this. Not only that, it's a paid service. So this is something they're always going to be getting financial backing back from their customers. Take something like a Google Duo, for instance, where it's not necessarily something that people are paying for, it's just a service that people can use. So that could find its way into the graveyard because, well, Google's not really making money off customers using it. Stadia, however, they are. And not only that, they're getting these big companies behind them to be a part of this whole situation. Now, another thing that kind of goes in line with this is that Google is giving away pro trials because Stadia is dying. No, they are absolutely not. You know why? Because this has always been a part of the plan. If you've been listening to Stadia ever, you would know that a part of the plan was always to be having a free tier of Google Stadia. Now, it just so happens around this time that the world is kind of in a weird spot. Now, we can talk all day if Stadia was going to be giving away their service at this point, but we won't have that story. And if we do, it won't be for a long time. Now, Stadia is giving away pro trials because that was always the plan. Look at APKs from a couple months ago. It was always talked about having pro trials. And again, as I said earlier, online services do this. This is just a staple of what Stadia is and what they will be doing, because Stadia is such a unique service that you do need to try it out. I don't expect anyone to pay full price for a game, find out it doesn't work for them, and they're like, well, I just wasted $60 on a game to find out that I can't even run this service. You don't want that taste in people's mouths. Give them the ability to try it out, not only for a month, but for 2 months, and they'll be able to see all these games right off the bat. They'll see 9 games that they can play. They don't have to spend a dime to find out if this works for them. And not only that, they can play these top tier quality games like Destiny 2 and Grid and find out just how good this service can be for them. Now, the idea that it's dying and that's why they're giving away trials, like I did a video on this already, like no, this just doesn't make sense. And if you think about it from that perspective, you're not looking at the full picture, and you're just saying it for the hate mongering that comes along with hating on Google Stadia. It doesn't make sense. If you really think about it, you are being clueless about it. All right? Google is not giving away something for free because it's dying. They're giving it away for free so you will continue your subscription. You will buy games because that's what online services do. But I want to know your myths that you've heard, and let me know of those in the comment section down below. Did I miss something? I need to know. Again, like this video if you liked it. Get subscribed because it does help us. And when you like and you subscribe everything, people will find out more about this channel and channels that I talk about and channels that I collaborate with. And speaking of collaborations, the Stadia Initiative returns Friday night at 8/7 Central. And if you missed my Twitter announcement, we're giving away a Stadia controller for free. And it's not because the Stadia Initiative is dying, it's because it is a marketing tool, okay? That, maybe you need a second controller, or maybe you have a Chromecast Ultra and you're like, oh, I just started Stadia, but I don't have a controller and I can't play on my TV. This is your opportunity to get one for free. Again, it's a marketing tool, okay? But in the meantime, again, thank you for joining us. And until next time, party on.